So Landon, it's obviously World Cup season right now. Just for anyone who doesn't know your story, take us back a little bit. What did it feel like the first time you stepped onto the world in representing us here in the United States?
Well, I grew up. Let me turn off my TV. I'm watching golf. I grew up in Southern California during a time, James, when nobody played soccer. And so my older brother, thankfully, for whatever reason, loved soccer. And from the time I could start walking, I was kicking a soccer ball. And that meant that when it came time to be on a recreational team, I was miles ahead of every other kid because I had actually had a soccer ball at my feet before. And that was sort of the standard by which you could be a good player at that time. Also during that time, Major League Soccer didn't exist in our country, and not many people candidly just knew about the sport. In 1994, when the World Cup came to our shores for the first time, everything changed for me. All of a sudden, I realized that there was a game bigger than me just playing outside with my friends. And I remember going inside after I came home from my first ever World Cup game and last until I actually played in one. I went to see Romania, Argentina play in the Rose Bowl in Southern California. I went inside to my mom after I got home with my friend, and I said, "Mom, I want to do that. I want that." And so when you fast forward ahead to 2002, in South Korea, I had the opportunity for the first time to play in my first ever World Cup match. And it's really hard to describe because when you dream about something your whole life and then you achieve it and it's on that level and that scale, there's nothing that can ever really compare to that. I was fortunate to play in 3 World Cups, but playing in my first one ever was a literal dream come true for a kid from Southern California who just wanted to do that one time in his life.
Yeah, I love that. And so you got 3 total World Cups, 2002, 2006, 2010. What does that number mean to you personally? And, how did the player that you described in 2002 differ from the one when you played in your last World Cup in 2010?
Sure. Well, we all obviously grow a lot from when we're 20 till we're 28 years old, both in our profession and personally. But I have always appreciated in sports and in life people who are able to do things for long periods of time. In sports, there are many, many, many people I came across in my career, James, who were better players, better athletes, better technically with the ball, better at things than me. But in order to play for a long stretch of time, you have to be able to adapt and adjust because the game is always changing. And in sports, you are constantly fending off the next person. So in business, at Rubrik, you're constantly, of course, trying to fend off competitors and fight off competitors. And it's similar in sports. The only difference in sports is every weekend you are judged. Right. So every Saturday night, you're judged by your coaches and your players and your teammates, but you're also judged by millions of people who are watching on TV and around the world. And the World Cup that you're watching this summer is amplified by, 50, 100, 200 times. And so it becomes ruthless in that way. But the people who are able to do it over and over and over for long stretches of time are the ones who have always had my most admiration, and that's something I'm very proud of that I was able to play in 3 of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you're talking about that longevity. I mean, if you take back to 2002, that World Cup, you were just 20 years old, but you won FIFA's best young player of the tournament. You helped the U.S. reach the quarterfinals. What was going through your mind carrying that kind of expectation early on in your career, at a very young age?
Into the tournament, nothing was going on in my mind except just playing soccer, which is why I was able, I think, to achieve success at a young age. After that is where it became difficult because now things change because the expectation is that you're supposed to be good. And it was really interesting because in 2006, I'm now 24 years old and we're playing in our next World Cup in Germany. And the expectation from our small soccer audience at that time and from everybody in the soccer universe was that we were going to be good and I was going to be good and that sports are linear and, we'll just continue to have success. And actually the opposite happened. I had a really poor World Cup. We had a really poor World Cup. And it was a really important moment in my life because it made me realize that it doesn't just automatically happen. You have to make it happen. No matter how much success you've had, especially in sports that are the ultimate meritocracy, there are very, very little politics, very, very few favors. You either can do it or you can't. And so you realize quickly that you better perform or else you're not going to be on the field. And long term, that was a really important thing for me to learn. In the short term, of course, it was very difficult to deal with, but long term, it really helped me in my career and in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's very different than 2010, that World Cup. I mean, your goal against Algeria in stoppage time, this sent the U.S. Through to the knockout round and became one of the most iconic moments ever in U.S. soccer history. So I want you to walk us through what you were feeling in that particular moment.
Well, I see Ray Edelman very kindly put the video there, which brings me a lot of joy. Thanks, Ray. The important part of this story, James, is the context. So we tied our first game against England. We tied our second game against Slovenia, and we had to win the third game. If we lost or we tied the game, we were out. If we won the game, we were advancing. And so it actually made it quite simple because in a World Cup, oftentimes, and if you watch the tournament this summer, you'll see a lot of teams, both sides of the field, who say, you know what, a tie is okay for us today because we don't want to lose the game because not only are you losing the points, you're giving points to your competitor in your group. So there's this whole really interesting dynamic going on. But in that game, we had to win. Algeria were already out of the tournament, but they're very proud and they wanted to beat the U.S. So the game became this very back and forth sort of ping pong back and forth type of match where everyone was trying to score. And it ended up staying 0-0 until the 92nd minute. And in the 92nd minute, they have a really big chance to score. And they head a ball and Tim Howard, our goalkeeper, catches it. And I'm sort of cheating up the field because I know we need to score. There's no point in me defending at this point. He throws it to me and we go on a break. I roll it a pass wide to Josie Altidore. He rolls it in front of the goal to Clint Dempsey, who's running in front of the goalkeeper. He shoots it and it hits the goalie in the chest. And there's this moment in time that I'll never forget the rest of my life where the ball is slowly rolling revolution over revolution into my path. And the net looked like the ocean. Like I literally could not miss. And I was able to roll it in 2 minutes later. I scored the goal. We scored the goal. 2 minutes later, the ref blew the final whistle and it meant we were going through to the knockout stage in the World Cup.
Amazing. What a feeling. I love that analogy on is as big as the ocean. We're talking a lot about pressure here too. There was a lot of pressure in that moment. Elite athletes, they talk about, dealing with the pressure, and some talk about how it's a skill that you can train. How did you personally prepare, like mentally, for the biggest matches? And was there ever a moment where the preparation actually failed you?
Sure. I mean, very many times athletes, I don't know if over prepare is the word, but overthink for sure. Right. And I don't know if anybody watched the England-Argentina game last night. Yeah. But the England coach last night, after England score a goal in about the 55th or 60th minute, his response in that moment was, okay, we're just going to defend for the next 35, 40 minutes. And that meant they stopped attacking. They stopped putting any pressure on Argentina's defense. And Argentina was able to methodically get into the England defensive half of the field and just pepper them with shots and crosses and chances over and over and over. And so that was a moment where the coach really failed his team because I always say in sports, it comes out often. Fear is the most powerful human emotion. Yeah. It rules people, right? We make so many decisions every day based on fear. I just brushed my teeth. If you don't brush your teeth, your mouth's not going to smell good, and you're going to bother people, and whatever. So we can rule people through fear, and fear actually then rules us sometimes. And so the coach was overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, we have this lead, let's not lose, as opposed to let's go keep playing, whether we get the second or not, we'll see, but let's keep going. Now, back to your question, I'm a little unique in this way. So I grew up in a really poor part of Southern California, and I grew up with a single mom who was a special ed teacher, made very little money, was raising myself and my twin sister and my older half brother, who I referenced earlier. I always had, it wasn't conscious, but subconsciously, my mom was quite literally changing lives every day. She was changing our lives, our small family, but she was going to work every day and changing 20 to 30 to 40 kids who needed really intensive help, and helping them learn how to read, learn how to be in society, learn how to become educated. She was doing things that were very real in the world. And so it wasn't like I walked into a game and said, I have no pressure, because what my mom was doing was real pressure. But there was always this subconscious feeling of, at the end of the day, when you break it all down, I'm just kicking a soccer ball around a field. It's really not that important. So I never felt that, but I was around many, many players who that was very real for. And it was challenging. It's challenging to manage as a coach. It's challenging to manage as their captain or one of the leaders. Ultimately, I can say something to someone, but they need to feel it, right? And I can maybe walk them back from pressure for a few moments, but when you get in the fire, sports are emotional and things are happening fast. It's really difficult. So what's helped me throughout my life was my childhood and how I was brought up, and my mom. Also, over the years, learning how to breathe and intentionally breathe, so that in really crazy moments, penalty kicks are a great example, being able to really calm your body down, take away all the noise, all the exterior, all the perceived pressure, and just focus on what you're doing. It didn't work every time, but it worked a lot of times.
That's awesome. Good story. And it sounds like your mom's an amazing human being. In soccer, one mistake, it could be a misclearance, a wrong step. You mentioned could be in the way that they coached last night, having too much of a preventive defense. It can cost everything, right? So how did you personally learn to shake off errors quickly and then stay focused when the stakes were at their highest?
Well, the beauty of soccer and sports is there's always a next play until the end of the game. So in soccer, you don't have time to really stop and think about what happened, because the game is still happening. So in the NFL and football, if a quarterback misses his receiver on the route, he's now got to sit in the huddle for the next 40 seconds and go, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then when he goes over to the sideline and the defense is on the field, he's thinking, I can't believe I missed him. He was so wide open. In soccer, the game's going on. So you have to keep playing. So that is the beauty of it. The other beauty of sports in general, until your last game, is you always get another opportunity, right? Mm-hmm. Now, challenge is one big mistake means you might be on the bench, or you might get cut, or you might get traded, right? And that is a pressure that athletes have to deal with. And it's one of the reasons why there is absolutely an incredible confidence that always borders on arrogance with athletes, because you have to convince yourself, James, that you are the best player in the world. Otherwise, sports will tear you apart, because people, especially with social media, everybody's tearing you apart when you make a mistake, and you have to believe, I'm going to go score the next goal. I know I will, because if you don't, you'll crumble. And so it's an interesting dynamic that is very real in sports. And for those who watch the final on Sunday, you'll see it. There's going to be a moment or two moments or three moments where something happens. Someone should have scored. Someone should have made a tackle. Someone should have. And you have to condition yourself to just move on to the next play.
Yeah, totally. And, it's kind of alluding to the next phase of this conversation around, resilience. We talked a lot about it earlier before you came on stage here. For you, you've been open about stepping away from the game, you've battled depression, you've searched for purpose beyond soccer. So, how do you define resilience, and what did recovery actually look like for you personally?
Good question, and thanks for asking. Yeah, I think in any walk of life, we deal with real problems, right? And in my career, the times I was at my very, very best, I was at peace off the field. Everything in my life was at peace off the field. Some of the worst times in my career were because I wasn't at peace off the field, or there were things going on off the field. And you'd be surprised. I mean, look, we're all human beings. A breakup with a girlfriend or boyfriend, a breakup, or your dog passes away, or your parent is sick. All of these things can really impact, just like they would impact you or anybody at Rubric who's working day to day. The hard part about sports is there's always someone waiting to take your job. And so for me, when I was going through, I had 3 pretty severe bouts of depression in my life. And when I was going through that, I had to, and I'm not saying this is healthy, but I had to find a way to keep showing up at practice and at least getting through training in a real way, getting through the games in a real way, while I was sleeping for an hour a night on my couch and not eating. And that's really hard when your physical performance is part of what you do. It was very challenging, but I was always aware that I had to keep doing that. At that time, I couldn't go to my coach and say, hey, this is what's going on. I mean, I could have, it just wasn't accepted. It wasn't the norm. And I don't think my coaches would have understood. And so I had to have a level of resilience that was very difficult. What really, really, really helped me was going to therapy, because through therapy, I was working towards getting better, even when I wasn't in a good place. And I was able to continually feel like I was making progress. I had one game I'll share, James. There was a game in the middle of summer. I was playing with the Galaxy, and we were playing a team on the weekend. And I said to my therapist, I hadn't slept in about a week. This was in one of the real dark moments. And I said, I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. There's no way I can go out and play a 90-minute soccer game right now. And she said, do me a favor. I said, what's that? She said, it was a Friday afternoon and we were set to play on a Saturday. She said, when you go on the field tomorrow, I want you to look into the crowd and I want you to find a little boy that you feel like you can connect with, that reminds you of yourself as a little boy. And all I want you to do is play for him and forget about everything else. And it was a really powerful moment, and I'll never forget it. I walked out, and this kid will never know. He's probably an adult now, never know that he got me through a game that day that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to. But I share that story because without someone I could trust and could help me through that, I don't know how I would have gotten through that game. I really don't. And so I'm very grateful for that.
That's amazing. Amazing story. Hopefully one day you get to meet that person, but I don't know how that would happen, but that's incredible. So you shared a lot, like on an individual standpoint in resilience, recovering, maybe from a team aspect, every team, they have a plan going in, to the season, the game. But what happens when that plan breaks down, maybe at halftime, you're down. Maybe you could share like how the best coaches that you played for really reset that room in the locker room and help you all get.
Yeah, great question. Again, the difference is in sports, this is happening in real time every weekend. So most weekends you go into a game and the plan doesn't turn out to be maybe what you were expecting or hoping or thinking it was going to be. In business, it's now AI comes along. Now you don't have to figure out at Rubric, you don't have to figure out AI in the next 45 minutes, but maybe in the next 45 days or in the next 4 to 5 years or the next decade, right? But in sports, if you don't figure it out in the next 45 minutes, you lose the game, right? And that's the result. So there is now it's not as complicated as AI, right? There are many easier solutions in a sporting event and in soccer. But there experience, of course, helps. Having gone through different scenarios with your team, very, very helpful. I always say in sports, continuity is crucial because if you or I are on a team and we have 9 other people on our team that we've been together for 4 years, we've pretty much seen every iteration of what could go right and what could go wrong in a game. So after 15 minutes, I might look at you and say, oh, yeah, this was like that game in January. Remember when we played that team and like they were doing this? This is how we can adjust. If you don't have that context and that continuity and that trust with people, it becomes very difficult. And it's why it was interesting. And I keep alluding to this game yesterday. England, after they scored their goal to go up yesterday, they put in a bunch of defensive players, and a few of whom went into positions that they are not used to playing in. And certainly not used to playing together in. So maybe at their club team, they're used to it, but they have not done that together in this tournament. And that becomes very difficult because, again, there are so many things going on in the moment, and you have to make split-second decisions, and one wrong decision, and there were a couple of them yesterday, and bang, bang, the ball's in the back of your net, and now they're on British Airways flight home, right, this weekend after their third, fourth place game. So it happens really fast, and the more continuity, context you have together, trust you have in the person next to you and the few people around you and your core group, the better decisions you can make. And I don't think that's any different than the business world. It just doesn't happen as quickly. It happens over a longer course of time, but continuity is really crucial.
That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, you look at organizations today, as we kind of tie it back to business here, for what we talk about, they face these relentless attacks. For us, it's identity breaches, threats that come from every direction. As someone who's spent a career defending against the best in the world, playing against the best in the world, what's your instinct on what separates teams that hold and keep form against, when things are starting to collapse, like maybe even alluding to the game last night? Like, what would you have done, mentally and as a team to overcome that?
Yeah, this is going to sound crazy, but there's something that happens in sports that I think casual fans don't know about. And it doesn't happen often, but it was clear to me, again, I'm using this reference point as the game last night because it's fresh in my brain and maybe some people watched the game yesterday.
Yep.
There are times on the field where coaches make decisions and say, look, we want to do this and that and that. And in the heat of the moment, you are on the field and you're thinking, this is not working. And so there were many times where I would say to a teammate or a teammate would say to me, or we would get together in a little group and we say, look, guys, I know the coach wants us to do that, but like we're in the fire right now and it's not working. So we need to adjust. If he yells at us at halftime, he can yell at us at halftime, but we need to get through this right now. And so we're going to change this, that, and we're going to go about it that way. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is, and I think it is definitely a generational thing. In my generation, and certainly the generation before me who played, players held each other accountable. So it's one thing to have your leader hold you accountable, right? And if you're a VP or a senior VP or you're a director or a manager, whoever you are, the people that you are managing underneath you, of course, I hope that you're holding them accountable. But sports, and I don't know for sure in business, but I would guess in business too, it's way more powerful if you're holding each other accountable, because I feared Tim Howard, my goalkeeper, yelling at me way more than my coach yelling at me. I didn't want to let him down. I didn't want to let the coach down either. But if Tim yelled at me on the field because I let him down, I was mortified. And so the ability to hold each other accountable is really important. And last night, again, it's really in the heat of the moment. There's a lot going on. But I was waiting for 1 or 2 or 3 of the English players, and I watched this stuff very closely, to maybe go down on the field for a minute, bring a few people together and just say, look, I know he wants us to do this. It's not working, and we're going to do this instead. And whatever that is, they can figure out. They're in the heat of the moment. I'm not. but I didn't see any real accountability in that moment from the players on the field. And I think that made a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Incredible game, but you're right. Like, I didn't see that either in that game. Well, Landon, look, last one from me. This has been incredible, by the way. I've learned a lot. You've covered like a lot of different pieces here. Since we're talking World Cup here, final is Sunday. Who are you watching? Like, some of the specific players that you're most interested in. Who wins that game? And is there a particular moment that you're really looking for?
So here's the challenge. Before the tournament, I picked Spain to win the World Cup.
Whoa.
The problem is we get to witness right now, and I hope people appreciate this. Last night I was in the state. I was literally right behind the goal, the Argentina goalkeeper's goal, looking at Argentina score on the other end of the field, right on the field. And I had this moment when Messi crossed the ball in and they scored. And I couldn't help but think how incredible it is that I was on the field watching the best player who's ever played the world's most popular sport live. I mean, it's an incredible thing to realize in that moment. And the problem for Spain is that Argentina somehow, some way, just keep finding a way to win. Sometimes it's been maybe controversial call from a referee, right? But sometimes those things go your way. Sometimes it's just finding a way to grind back into a game and win it. Sometimes they win comfortably. Sometimes it's easy. They just keep finding a way to win. They did it in Copa America, which is their Confederations tournament. They did it in the last World Cup. It's hard for me to say they won't do it again. What makes you believe they won't? That being said, Spain are by far the best team in the tournament. They are the best team. They completely annihilated a very good French team in the semi. The French team looked like a college team against professionals. They really did. And so it's hard for me to say that they're not going to win, but something obviously has to give. I still think, and I know I'm an idiot for saying this, Spain will win the game, but that means I'm betting against the greatest player who's ever walked the planet. And probably a fool's errand. I guess we'll see.
I love that. Well, you heard it here. Awesome, Landon. Before I open up to a couple of questions from the audience, I did want to tell them a reminder to all of you that are listening right now. We've shared a meeting request form in the chat. If you book and attend a meeting with us, we have a very limited number of signed scarves from yours truly, Landon, plus some rubric soccer gear to send you. So don't forget to fill that out. Let me take a look, see what questions we've got. Alex Poster here. Landon, do you think Argentina is treated equally versus other teams? You kind of just touched on, maybe some controversial calls, but I'm curious what you think here.
No, they're not treated equally. And go through the course of history. I grew up watching the Chicago Bulls in the 90s. You didn't treat Michael Jordan as a referee the same way you treated some random player on another team. Is that fair? Probably not. But what people forget is that referees are human beings. Do I believe referees are going into the game saying, I really want to make sure Argentina wins today? Absolutely not. There's no scenario where that is happening. Okay, so I just want people to, stop that. However, I was at the game last night. It was 70,000 people in Atlanta. There were 45,000 Argentinian fans and maybe 20,000 English fans. As a human being, if you put yourself in the referee's shoes, and the ref last night was American, by the way, did a phenomenal job in the game, was excellent, flawless. Put yourself in the ref's shoes subconsciously. I'm not saying this has happened consciously. Do you want to appease and make happy 40,000 people, or do you want them whistling at you and booing you? So I'm not saying they're deliberately doing it. I'm just saying if you put yourself in that situation, you are a human being, you feel the energy, you feel the excitement. You don't want to piss them off. And if it's a 50-50 call and it's Lionel Messi, the greatest player who's ever played the game, you're probably going to give him the benefit of the doubt. And that's just the reality. And again, is it fair? Is it right? Probably not, but it is just part of it. And oh, by the way, he's earned it. I mean, he has, and so has Argentina. They've won the World Cup. They're back in the final again. They've earned that. Does it really decide the match? No, but on the margins, it can tilt things a little bit more in their favor.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in this, Ben Hinton had a question that kind of ties into this, maybe treated fairly, unfairly. In our last game, the US, there was a red card given prior. You weren't supposed to play in the next match. Yeah. What do you think on that scenario?
A lot of thoughts.
Is the other team treated unfairly there, or Belgium?
So we played against Bosnia, and near the end of the game, Flo Balogun, our striker, gets a red card. If you pulled 900, or if you pulled 1,000 former soccer players at any level, 999 would say there's never a scenario where that's a red card. It's unfortunate. Yeah. It's a coming together. It sucks for the Bosnian player. It's not a red card, okay? The problem is we now have video review that, in my opinion, is just way overthinking things. Mm-hmm. And when you put it in a still shot and you see what happened, you can go, oh, well, that's a really reckless, dangerous challenge. Maybe have a look. I think it's a red card. In the end, they make the wrong decision to give him a red card. Yeah. And if U.S. soccer were allowed to just go through the normal protocols to try to get the red card either rescinded or suspended, and FIFA decided to rescind it or suspend it, it would have been fine. Yeah. The problem is it became political. It got to the presidential level, and then it became this really murky, messy situation. And the person I feel bad for is Flo Balogun, because he's a really amazing young man. He handled everything perfectly, the entire way. So now all of a sudden he becomes a bit of a villain. Of course, the U.S. becomes a villain because they're seen to have received favorable treatment, and they probably did. And in the end, it actually hurt us, because I don't know that it impacted our performance, but it certainly motivated the Belgians. And the Belgians played their best game of the tournament by a million miles. And so it was just a really unfortunate situation that could have been avoided on so many levels. In the end, it was right that he was allowed to play the match. Just the process by which it happened really made it murky.
Yeah, for sure. And you don't want to give the competition an edge in any moment.
No, James, like at this level, you cannot overstate, professional pride in athletes. I mean, these are athletes with massive ego. And all of a sudden they felt slighted and aggrieved, and like the world was against them, and the US was against them, and FIFA was against them. And they're like, okay, we'll do this on the field and see how this goes. It was the worst case scenario for us.
No doubt. Shifting gears a little bit, early on, you said, you cleared any speculation on who you believe is the greatest ever. Obviously, Messi is your choice amongst many others. But just in terms of who you played with, who's the best ever? This was a question from Vinny. Who's the best player that you've ever shared the field with?
Well, played against was Messi.
Yeah, let's do both. Played with,
sure,
and against.
So played with was a guy named Robbie Keane, who was an Irish international, who I had the pleasure of playing with at the LA Galaxy. And he was by a long way the best player I ever played with. He wasn't the most spectacular or sexy or aesthetically appeasing on the field, but sometimes you just have players that you connect with on the field. And from the first training session, we understood each other. And we were both sort of very clever in how we moved and how we manipulated defenses and how we put them under pressure. And so it was such an immense joy to play with him. So he was the best ever. The best I ever played against, I had the misfortune of playing against both Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi in their prime. And both in different ways were a nightmare to play against. Messi, because in his prime especially, and I saw it again last night, he's almost impossible to get the ball off of. It's almost impossible. And in soccer, almost any professional, 99.9% of professionals I played against, if I wanted to really try to get the ball off and or just foul them, I could do so.
Yeah.
As a professional. With Messi, you can't. You can try to foul him and he just bounces off you. You can try to get the ball and he just goes by you. And it's virtually impossible to get the ball off of him. With Cristiano Ronaldo, I had never played against a physical specimen like that. It's probably akin to like LeBron in his prime. These are the best athletes in the world, and LeBron runs by them at will. And Cristiano would do that. If he decided he was going to run by you, there was nothing you could do. You just try to get back in position and slow him down. But if that was his mindset, there's nothing you could do. And so those two in different ways, I don't know that there will ever be another like them in the way that they both played. They were just so special.
Absolutely. Well, there's only one of them left that we'll see again Sunday here. Another question here from Adam. I like this. I'm curious your thoughts here. What's the most important quality you would want from a player if you were the coach of the U.S. men's national team?
It's a great question. This would have changed over generations. And for this generation, I'm trying to think of the right word, I would say probably competitive spirit.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I mean, I have my theories. We do not have enough players playing at the highest level in this country who have a crazy competitive nature. We don't. And we saw it sort of came to light in the Belgian game, right? There were lots of things and lots of reasons and lots of scenarios and we talked about the red card and the psychological piece, whatever. But when I watched the game, I didn't see enough guys who were just crazy competitive and didn't want to lose the game and were willing to literally do anything to not lose the game. So I think that becomes, in this generation, the most important quality. In generations past, 95% of the players had that. So you didn't have to think about it. That was a starting point. Then there were other things that we were lacking. But that would be now, if I'm scouting or looking at players, I want to see that first, because that can get you. I mean, Argentina last night just refused to lose the game. They did. It was just pure will. Yes, they're talented and they make plays and they have Messi and all that, but they just refused to lose the game. They just said, we're not going to lose the game. And they willed themselves to victory. And that is a very vital quality.
No doubt. In my organization, we talk a lot about skill, will, and you have to have both. But if you only have skill and not the will, like you're talking about, you're going to fall short.
That's right.
Landon, you're amazing. Thank you so much for the time today. Just a wonderful conversation. I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did. Any final words for everyone who's listening?
Thank you for having me, and it's been my pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm just really grateful that someone since I was 9 months old, I had a soccer ball at my feet. And so I really love this game. I'm really enjoying the country seeing this game in a new way, in a new light for the first time ever. It's been really enjoyable for me because I've been an ambassador and trying to grow this sport forever. So I'm really grateful for people being open-minded and letting it happen. And then also I'm really proud of our country because I travel a lot and I've traveled the world many times over. And a lot of places you go have a negative thought about what America is. And I just think our country showcased how amazing this country is. And it was really inspiring for all of us because we live in obviously difficult times right now, the last years, decade, whatever. And it's been really cool to see the world see us in a new light and really enjoy America and appreciate America. And I'm very proud of it. I am, despite what we said about the Belgium game, very proud of our team and what they did, because they really did inspire a country for 3 weeks. And we were all united and excited and proud of what they were doing. So it was an incredible month in that way. And we got one more amazing game. We have a third, fourth game on Saturday, but one more amazing game on Sunday, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
No doubt about that. Landon, thank you.